Make sure on this end, we live on YouTube. Then we'll get started. Let's see. All right, live. All right, we'll be right back.
Go, Griot, go, Griot, go, Griot. Yeah, I'm in the city, yeah, I'm in the spot, in the vicinity. I'm the hottest up in the city, yeah, it really is. I studied the ones that was the realest, the illest, that invented that. Talking about Griot, West African passages for the streets, though. Adios, mio, man, you get about the Afro-Latinos. Drop their traditions from Africa's West Central. Let's face a toast to the ancestors of old. For the knowledge comes in the form of a griot. In the form of a griot.
Yeah. Got my drink and my two-step, man. My drink and my two-step. I'm talking about.
Welcome back to the Griot Podcast. Get a Griot Podcast ahead one time. All right. I am one of the hosts. I am Kofi Piesie. I am a writer, a ghostwriter, an author, a publisher, a music producer, a content creator, an actionologist, and an actionholic.
Okay.
Hey,
take it out the way. Take it.
What up, good and wonderful people? My name is Dr. Ashley Wade. I am one of the hosts of the Griots Podcast. So happy to be here. I am a pharmacist. I'm the owner of ADH Pharmacy Consulting. I'm an author. I'm a community and literacy advocate. I love to create book clubs. Shout out to Dr. Wade Book Club and Corks and Covers. And happy to be with the good, wonderful people today.
Yeah. Bringing up the rear, the man, Sean P from the Sean P Experience Podcast. I am also the third part of the Griot Podcast, content curator, community activist, open mic host, literacy and libations here in Lafayette, Louisiana, multi-published author, public speaker, among other things, man. I'm glad to be here for part 2, School to Prison Pipeline. Let's get it.
All right. We got 2 guests. We'll let them introduce themselves in a few minutes. We are excited to have both of these educators on the panel today to further this discussion of the school line to prison pipeline, right? So we got to go through the little formalities first. We gonna have an open segment where we honor teachers, scholars, writers, authors, revolutionaries from the past or the present. That is by my fellow Griot, Seanathan Polidore. We have a Griot and Griot segment by myself. Then we go into the commercial segment. Then we'll go into the discussion segment today. Also, we have a woman segment where we always want to give honor and praises to our beautiful women who and give them their flowers, man, who are contributing something of value to the political world, the writing world, the author world, the business world, the medical world, or the academia world, right? Those who in the chat, please like and share the show. Please like and share the show. So let's get into it, man. Let's get into our open segment. I'll turn it over to you, Sean.
Yes, sir. So for every episode we have, for my opening statement honoring the ancestors, man, I try to find somebody that coincide with that subject matter. Today being School to Prison Pipeline, I want to honor one of our great scholars, man, William Leo Hansberry. That's right, William Leo Hansberry. He is related to Lorraine Hansberry that we all know about, Raising in the Sun, things of that nature, right? Over there at Howard University. He was one of the first people ever to start African American studies here in the U.S. So much to the fact of he was so ahead of his time, he couldn't get his PhD because he didn't have anybody above him to do his doggone dissertation to vet him to get his PhD. So he was ahead of the actual other scholars, if you will. He was a real charge in leading African American studies, Africana studies, and he even taught two African presidents, man, in his time being over there at Howard University. A forefather for a lot of our favorite scholars. They went through that William Leo Hansberry school of thought, that school of training, that school of thinking. So I want to honor William Leo Hansberry, and our brother Dr. Kaba Kamene has a wonderful book honoring William Leo Hansberry. Go ahead and check that book out, man. It's a phenomenal publication, and that's my honoring statement for today. William Leo Hansberry, salute, peace to the ancestors.
All right. Oh, I want to bump my face on the mic. All right, all right. Uh, let's get into the Griot section real quick, man. The Griot section. Let me stroll down here real quick. So, we have to reiterate this. Every show. A lot of people who follow myself as well as Sean, as well as Dr. Wade, um, they should know what a griot is now. But just for those who may come later on and listen to this in the archive or pop on here in a little bit, you know what I'm saying, and go back and review it, we always have to reiterate what a griot and what a griotis is, right? So a griot, um, well, I'll just give it the griot is pronounced griot. Um, a griot can be a writer. A griot can be a storyteller. A griot is a lesion. A griot is a master of ceremony, right? A griot is origin is from West Africa, right? A griotis, both men and women are griots, yet traditional gender bias have delegated the female griots and griots to lesser known status. The griot and griotis are trained in the same way throughout. Griotis tend to learn more from women. Traditional griots specialize in history conveys through the spoken word, while griotis focus on praise through songs. Griotis specialize in singing. Often men and women perform together while griots play a quarter of griotis sing, right? The traditional women do not play instruments like the kora or the drums, but sings instead. Lately, however, difference between the men and women griotis have begun to blur. Exceptional talents in women's can become master griots or griotis as well as one who reaches middle age, right? So again, a griot, most people know griot or griotis to be a storyteller, but again, they are masters of ceremonies. They are musicians. They are warriors. They are teachers. They are writers amongst other things. So a griot holds so many different roles. Some facilitate a lot of those different roles, and some only facilitate one of those different roles from a griot or a griotis perspective. So there is the griot segment. So real quick, we'll go into the promotion segment real quick. We got a few little things we want to promote before we get into the discussion. Let me pull them up.
The Red Ranger in the lab.
All right. This publication, Acting on Your Dreams and Vision, by myself, Dr. Ashley Wade, and Seanathan Polidore. If you don't have a copy, please go out and get you a copy of Acting on Your Dreams and Vision. We also have the Acting on Your Dreams and Vision workbook, which facilitated a class that we had an 8-week class that we did on Acting on Your Dreams and Vision. So this book is a complement, right, to the original book. We also just released an audio version of Acting on Your Dreams and Vision, the audio experience, right? So if you are on the go, or you don't like reading books, shame on you if you don't like reading books. But if you don't like reading books or you're on the go, this is a great format for you, Acting on Your Dreams and Vision audio book. Also, we have another author on the panel today. So his book just came out today. I mean, your book just came out. How long your book? Your book just came out, right?
No, this actually came out in 2023, June
Okay,
2023.
well, we late to the part. I just seen him post that the other day, and Sean shared it with me. So, and he asked, well, that'd be a good look if we also promoted him doing our promotional segments. So, how to use all of how to use all of this mass volume one. So there'll be other volumes coming out,
Hmm.
correctly. Okay, okay. This is the ages of what? It ranges from the ages of what?
So it's all ages because it's really a parent resource guide.
Okay.
So for parents, or really not just parents, but any elders, grandparents, elders, not just olders, but elders, so they can help their children, get them ready for math class.
Okay.
You know,
Most definitely, most definitely. Where can they all pick? Can they get it down? This is the thing here over here. Uh we love to patronize the author directly if that's what the author prefers, right? Because some say just go over there to Amazon or Barnes and Noble or Target or Walmart or wherever it's at. So do you have any on copy? Do you prefer somebody patronizing you directly or just going over to Amazon and purchasing a copy of your book?
at the current time, it's easiest to just go to Amazon. Get it from Amazon right for now. For now, though,
Okay,
yeah.
for sure, for
Emphasis
sure.
on for now.
For sure,
Yeah,
for
yeah.
sure. So y'all go get a copy and support uh black authors, please support black authors. So man, let's get into the discussion segment. Before we get into the discussion segment, we have two educators on the panel who, like we said, is going to help us further this discussion, right? So y'all, would y'all please introduce yourself? It don't matter who go first. Just introduce yourself. Give a brief breakdown, breakdown of who you are and what it is that y'all do.
Well, I guess I'll go. Basically, I'm a black man that teaches math, and I teach math in person. I teach math virtually, and I teach math on YouTube. And I started a company called All This Math back in 2017, and I really went full time with it as a math tutoring business in 2018. And I have an overall mission of improving the relationship between the black community and mathematics. And prior to that, I've been a high school math teacher since 2005, so I'm coming up on 20 years. And in 2019, actually, no, not 2019, well, 2018, I started teaching on the college level. I started teaching math methods courses, which was good for me because I was one of those people that didn't like the so-called new math, but once I had to learn it so that I could teach it, I really appreciated it. And I wished that I had learned, basic math that way, like 20, 30 years ago, because it provides a conceptual foundation. It makes the math make sense, you know. And yeah, so yeah, just we're here trying to. I'm all about resources, not just for the youth, but also for parents, grandparents, uncles, aunties, everybody. I just want our people to win. And I realized from having taught math for so many years that math is one of those, like, critical elements that we're gonna need to master and be proficient at if we are indeed gonna win, right? And also, it just, the rules and the principles in math, they mirror a lot of the social science principles and a lot of the political science principles. So I'm of the opinion that when a lot of times, like, people like us talk about, what's, in the best interest of the black community, when some people look at you like you're crazy and they don't really understand, it's because they may lack a certain level of critical thinking ability and analytical reasoning ability. And math is really a class from early on where you can really develop that skill set, without even realizing it. So a lot of times teachers, even myself as a young teacher, I didn't realize the impact and the seriousness of math. So I didn't know to tell my students that the main more major purpose of learning this subject is so you can develop your reasoning ability and your critical thinking ability and your problem solving skills. You can understand things. Far too many of us, we get caught up in the equations and the formulas and the plus signs and the minus signs and the numbers. And it's easy if you get stuck on that. It's easy to think, I'm never going to use this in life, or like, what's the purpose of this? Or, you start thinking it has no utility. But it's really like, it's like that old Rick Ross album is deeper than rap, you know? So, with math is much deeper than it's more than meets the eye, so yeah, so that's the work that I've committed my life to at this point, trying to help our people embrace math, start to run toward the math instead of running away from the math, you know.
No doubt. Can you your name? Can you say your full name, and if your name have a meaning, can you break down your name?
So yeah, my name is Akil Parker, and I was given that name by my parents when I was a baby. I actually wasn't. I didn't have a name as soon as I was born. My parents wanted to observe me, so they observed me for like about a few days to a week. And my name is Arabic, and it means wise or one who uses reason.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, that's
So,
that's the meaning of my name. My middle name also, I might as well mention that, is Lateef. Lateef means pleasant.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. Suiting
You
name for
speaking
you.
Kofi language right there, like Kofi smiling. When you make Kofi smile like that, you're really doing something
Uh,
special.
yeah, I'm pretty pleasant. I be chilling, you know.
Yeah. For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Go ahead, my brother.
Oh well,
Drum roll,
how's everybody
please.
doing? What's going on, you all? My name is Matthew Conley. I'm a country boy straight out of Arkansas, but residing here in Dallas, Texas. I am a third grade teacher at a charter school in Oak Cliff, which is a area within Dallas. I ain't no writer with no books and math, but I do appreciate the fundamentals of math because I was one of those kids who, when I was younger, I couldn't stand math. But as I got older and I started learning in college, I said, okay, it makes sense because math, you need to learn how math to do cooking because, measurements and all that kind of stuff. Then as I got older, more older, teaching my kids, the new math, I wish we had learned, like you said, Akil, back in, but, it's kind of fun teaching them now because they love math. But, yeah, I'm a third grade teacher. I've been there about 2 years now. I started as a fourth grade teacher. I started at the semester of the fourth grade year. So that was my thrown into the wolves. And then they brought me back as a third grade teacher. And I guess I did a pretty good job. So they brought me back again as this year, third grade teacher. I'm also over the student council at the school. I am the vice president of the ASALA branch here in Dallas, which ASALA is a organization created by Carter G. Woodson back in the 1920s. It stands for the Association for the Study of African American Life and History. Listen, I always forget it sometimes. I forget put either the L or the H, reverse the two. But anyways, though, I've been in that role since the summertime, and it's pretty good. We got a Heritage Bowl coming up. Always in the community doing stuff, just trying to not only empower myself, but empower those around me. So keep it simple like that.
No doubt. No doubt.
That's a
No
fact.
doubt. Yes,
All
indeed.
facts. Or all facts.
Yes, sir. So let's get into the discussion, man. Again, this is a reoccurring topic, that we're gonna tackle again today. We're gonna be asking these two educators a bunch of questions, you know what I'm saying, and getting some feedback from them, but what is the school to prison pipeline? Let's break that down one more time, man. The school to prison pipeline is a disturbing trend that funnels students, particularly those from a marginalized community, out of the public schools into the juvenile and criminal justice system. This pipeline is perpetuated by various policies and practices such as zero tolerance for discipline, the presence of police in school, the criminalization of minor infractions, African American students who are disproportionately affected, facing harsher disciplinary actions and higher rates of suspension and expulsions compared to white peers. In addition, these students are often misdiagnosed while behavior disorders or learning disabilities simply because they exhibit high energies or restlessness. This misdiagnosis can lead to inappropriate placements in special education programs where schools receive additional funding for each student classified as having special needs. Furthermore, the drug prescriptions to manage these mixed diagnosis conditions can be used. I mean, can be an as issue. Now be as a danger to addictive and crack cocaine, leading to long-term health and dispensary issues. The impact of the school to prison pipeline extends beyond individual students, contributing to the broader society inequalities and perpetuating cycles of poverty and incarceration within the African American community. So I wanted to set the basis again, for people who may not know, because there are people who don't know about the school to prison pipeline, and the different policies, right, that has been passed that has affected African Americans, students, man. So let's get into it, man. So um who want to go first, man? Who want to go? Y'all want me to ask the first question, or do y'all want to,
Go ahead, Doc. Kick it
All
off, Doc.
right. So, we went way in the weeds on the first part, talking about different levels. We did address um, ADHD, different conditions. We talked about behavior. We talked about policy. And I think it's great that you guys are both on to speak to your personal experience and share that with our community of listeners in this scope of the school to prison pipeline, because there are a lot of us who are removed, former educators, former, people in the classroom, professors. And then once we remove, sometimes we speak about it, what's going on in the classroom, and we really don't have a clue what's really going on certain levels. So the first question I have is for Mr. Conley. I want to know, what do you think about your background as a historian? And how do you think that that part of who you are contributes to your effectiveness as a teacher? And what qualities do you have that make you an effective educator? I want to baseline that question across the board, just so we can kind of see who's in the classrooms, right? If you want to answer that for us.
Okay. Man, knowing the history of Black educators in this country is the basic for it, because you have to understand, when we became free, the first thing a lot of free people did was went and got an education. That was one thing, because remember, we weren't allowed to read, and only time they were reading was in the church. So that's why a lot of, if you look at the schools, are church-based schools as well, because that's who was helping with education at the time being. But it actually was when I was in college about 10 years ago. I took my first African American studies class, and it was years 1865 to 1965. So that's dealing from Reconstruction through Jim Crow all the way to the Civil Rights Movement. And when I started learning about that, I'm like, this has been hidden from us for so long. Like, when I learned about the Tulsa bombing, the Black Wall Street, I'm like, I'm from Fort Smith, Arkansas, which is an hour and a half from Tulsa. I never knew about this. Like, how is this possible that this has been hidden for so long? So knowing that much, that's hidden history. That kind of made me be like, I want to teach. I want to teach and let people know this history that has been hidden from us for so long. But even just, again, like knowing I come from a family of educators per se. My great grandfather was a preacher. My great grandmother, she was a teacher. My grandmother was a community developer. She was always out in the community doing all kinds of speaking engagements, met different people. I was in the books in the library, so that she had me in the library reading books all the time. That's how I guess kind of got involved with history. I remember she had this book called it was Time's Greatest 100 Picture or Greatest Photos from like the 100 years. And it had to be like it was either the early 90s or the late 80s book that she had. And I remember just looking back at that, of all the images of the Hindenburg, just seeing history. History has shaped our world, and it's all a part of us. It's your story. Your history is your story, however you want to look at it. We all have a different history story, if you want to per se, but we're all included and encompassed in this big old history melting pot, if you want to put it like that as well. I hope that kind of answers your question.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because, sometimes in classrooms, people don't demonstrate their depth and when they get into education, sometimes they don't demonstrate their depth. So I personally think that, the way that you bring certain things into your class at third grade class has a lot to do with their student engagement. We'll talk about that stuff later, but sometimes, people assume who they think teachers are. You know what I'm saying? What their qualities are and things like that. So I wanted to kind of share your story with the chat and let people know, like, there are lots of well-rounded educators out there in these classrooms. We appreciate your representation too as a Black male, but I just wanted, to level set and so show people what types of people are in our classroom. Mr. Akil, you can respond to that if you like.
Can you repeat that question?
Oh, I have a question specifically for you. So in your segments, I was able to check out your YouTube. You introduce your segment with Black history. You have all your gear on, you have your graphic tee to be fired, and you introduce your segment with Black history. How do you think that contributes to your effectiveness as an educator?
So I think it kind of sets the tone. It sets the tone for the the instructional experience. And what I do on my YouTube channel is I attempt to model the way my actual classrooms are structured. And because in my high school teaching experience, when I was in a traditional classroom setting, Monday through Friday, 10 months a year, and all that, I would always be this teacher that the students would always say, you know what, Mr. Parker, you should have been an African American history teacher. And when we're in the geometry class or the pre-calculus class or the algebra 1 class, and I would just tell them like, well, I can do both. I can teach you both because I'm making the math problems and I'm making word problems and I'm including the Sada Shakur in the word problems and the Black Panther Party and Paul Robeson and Marcus Garvey and all that. And it's just I organically would always try to incorporate our history into the mathematics anyway, because I have a captive audience. And I also recognize that a lot of my students, they have like a lot of deficiencies in mathematics, but they also have deficiencies in their own knowledge of self and their historical awareness. So I said, well, it's kind of like with rap music, like rap's typical rap song. Well, these days rap songs be like 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes to 3 minutes. So it's like you're a captive audience for them 3 minutes. So I'm like, if I got y'all in here in this room for 45 minutes to 50 minutes, you're gonna learn today. You're gonna get this, and everybody might not get it, but I'm gonna tell it to you, and if you I'm gonna at least plant the seed, you're gonna hear about this person, because that's what a lot of it is. Just like another reference to rap music, like growing up, I knew who all these Italian mafia gangsters were because my favorite rappers dropped their names. I knew about the luxury European clothing designers were because all my favorite rappers dropped their names. I knew about the car companies, they just dropped the names. And then like I would end up, me and my peers, we would end up going to do our own research and find out more about them. So I said, well, that can work. That's just an educational strategy. So if I want you to know, who Amir Khan Cabral was, or who Samora Michelle was, or Maurice Bishop, I could just drop their name, and then I could take it a step further, and I can actually create a mathematics problem that incorporates them into the problem. So while you're thinking through the problem, you're like saying their name over and over again. And then you're going to think about like who they were and you're going to know who they are, So, and that actual approach is a teaching framework that I've developed, and I call it hystematics. So even, and it's different levels to hystematics, but even like you mentioned, like, the paraphernalia, like wearing the HBCU hoodies and sweatshirts and t-shirts, or, the different, I might have like an IDB Wells t-shirt on, but, we solving systems of equations. Even if I don't like, there's some videos where like I might not speak explicitly about the person, but you're going to see it though. You know what I'm saying? So you're going to see it. And then hopefully you'll be like, well, who is that? Like, they must have some level of importance for this person to have a article of clothing with that person on there. So, I think it definitely sets the tone, like it creates a vibe, unless that, you know, um, I'm a Black man that teaches math, but you're gonna get more than just the math. And I'm also I'm trying to break down like a lot of the boundaries between the subjects, because that's one of the issues with like Western education. Like it serves to confuse us, because it's like they compartmentalize everything. So they got you like you get us in this trick bag where you be thinking like reading don't have nothing to do with math, and math don't have nothing to do with science, and science don't have nothing to do with foreign languages, because physically you might be like a bell rings, you get up and go to a different room to talk about that. But they're all interconnected. Everything is interconnected. So it's also an attempt to decompartmentalize formal education and get people thinking about like, the overlaps, you know what I mean? So that's definitely why, why I do that. Well, one of the reasons why I do that.
Is
I
there any
appreciate
pushback, between that? And I don't know if you doing the same thing, Mac. Is there any pushback? Because that's a lot of what I see in the classroom. African American students, you know what I'm saying, Black students not seeing themselves, you know what I'm saying, in the curriculum. We always learning about Aristotle, with Thales, Euclid, all
Mm,
these Greek philosophers, and all these other white mathematicians, right?
mm,
So you saying that you talking about Emil Cabal, Marcus Garvey,
mm.
the Black Panther Party, and et cetera, et cetera. So is there any pushback, and that's great. That's wonderful that y'all are, are doing that, because more, I think more we the children become more involved and more engulfed and want to learn more when they see themselves in the education. And a lot of us, we grew up where we learned about every other culture but ourselves. We learned about the contributions of other people besides ourselves, right? And I know how Western academia, or Western curriculum is set up in a way that they want y'all to teach it in this format. I wanted y'all to teach it this way. So, is there any pushback um, from the school board, from your principal, vice principal, on the methods of teaching um, black historical figures, black people who made major contributions, black people who pull other black people up?
Well, at this point, well, I left the traditional classroom in 2018, but
Okay.
prior to doing that, and like I said, I offer a lot of this in different courses I've taught in conjunction with different homeschool collectives, where these are like African centered homeschool collectives. So they are these folks is already with it. So this is what they want, and they found out, this is how I teach. So they're that's the audience for that anyway. But even when I was in the classroom and I was doing this, not as at not as much of an extreme level, I should say, there wasn't as much pushback, because I guess it was just fortunate, like the spaces that I was in, I had a certain degree of autonomy. And and then at the same time, like a lot of the administrators I worked with, they didn't know enough to know about how dangerous it was what I was doing. Because that's another thing. So that's kind of like a bit. I benefited from their ignorance. They didn't know that what I was doing was a threat to national security. Because you can't teach black boys and black girls about revolutionary black people and anti-colonial strugglers, people that was trying to pick up AK-47s and go to war with France and Germany and Belgium and all them. You know, but they essentially wasn't smart enough to know that. To know, what I'm saying? Because I'm in the classroom with I had a poster. I remember when I taught at Overbrook in West Philly, same school Will Chamberlain went to. And, I had my poster of Amilcar Cabral in the back of the room, and he's sitting there. It's like one of his famous posters. He's flanked on each side with a couple brothers with the assault rifles. And he's just sitting there, and they like sitting there plotting, strategizing, because they going to war with the Portuguese, because they want their land back, So I wanted my students to see that. And and I had the Mozambique flag up on the wall, because the Mozambique flag is my favorite flag,
Okay.
because that logo, they got the book is it's a triangle. So then it's like a mathematical connection, because it's a triangular logo. The book is the foundation, the base of the triangle, but then they got the hoe is one of the legs, which represents the land, the importance of the land, because once you got land, you got everything, because everything comes from the land anyway. That's what revolution is really about. It's about the land. That's what Malcolm taught us, right? And then the other leg is the assault rifle, the AK-47. So it's like we're gonna go to war, what I'm saying, to get the land, but the book is the foundation, because we got to be well studied, because we can't just run out there with guns and not know nothing. We're gonna die, probably end up shooting ourselves, right? Or not having not applying a proper analysis to know what we should be doing, and know how we should go about the struggle. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I just, but then, I always understand that, somebody might catch on, and they might be like, no, you can't do this no more. And then I just had to figure out another way to do it. It's kind of like guerrilla warfare, that's the way I looked at it when I was in a public school or charter school setting, So yeah, if that answers your question.
I had a question, a statement on the overlap concept, right? I read this book a long time ago about the ancient Egyptian mystery schools, right? And it talked about how before Western society and all this kind of concept, they taught everything together. You learn about your body the same time you learn about the cosmos. You learn
Mhm.
about the land and herbs and all that medicine the same time as mathematics. All that was together. But like you said beautifully, we are brainwashed to say, I'm driving to the gym, then I'm driving to church, then I'm driving to school. And like you said, even at school, okay, now I'm in gym class, and now the bell ring, and now I'm going to home ec. It's all. compartmentalize instead of being like, look, if you understand the
Yeah.
body, you understand that heavenly body as well.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And if you do it that way, then that reduces the necessity for a child to ever come at you like, why am I learning this stuff? Why I need to know this? Because it's embedded within the lesson. Because it's like, this is like, okay, we could teach math, we could teach algebra, based upon like you mentioned, biology or anatomy. And then it's like, well, I would never ask the question like why I need to learn this, because I have a body. I need to know how my body works. Like I need to know this, right?
Let me give a small example of something happened last night randomly, right? So last night I went axe throwing, right? Throwing the axe. On the wall behind the desk is a diagram of an axe, and it shows you all the parts of an axe. But it's the same name as body parts. I never knew that. There's an eye, there's a beard, there's a butt, there's a face. It's all these parts to the axe, but it's body part anatomy labels. I thought it was a joke, like being funny. The homeboy said, no, that's the real anatomy of an axe. I've never heard that before. But in one like 2 minute moment, I'm able to memorize the parts of an axe because it's body parts.
Right.
So when I'm throwing in this, I'm like, oh, I hit the butt, or I hit the beard, or this happened. And they're like, how you memorize that? I just saw it. I just saw it by the desk. You didn't see it? But that's how schools should be, though. My point. Schools should be like that, to where you relating it to the body or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
You got to relate it to something.
And if I might throw this in there, so as a third grade teacher, I teach all 4 subjects, and so they are all intertwined with each other because reading is the foundation of it. Honestly, y'all, because reading and math, right? But to do a math word problem, you have to be able to read.
Yeah.
To do if I have to in social studies read a graph and coordinate the distance, I'm having to do math. If I go into science, now I got to figure out a formula to do a chemical, create a chemical compound. I'm having to do math and English because I got to be able to read this and calculate my points and all that stuff. So it all ties together. Not too long ago, we were doing in social studies, we were doing longitude and latitude in social studies. But if you flip it around and turn it to math, that's
it's the coordinate plane.
Thank you.
XY plane. XY axis. Yeah.
So it all ties in together. I think as you get older in school wise, they break it apart because if you guys think about it, trying to teach 30 kids all day long, all 4 subjects is really a lot on one person. But it can be done because again, I teach, but at my school, they like us to focus on math and English because on the STAR testing, they're tested on math and English. But 5th grade, they focus more on English, math, and science because they're tested on science in the STAR test. In 8th grade, along with the other grades, yeah, they focus on it, but they're not as important, but they are important. But 3rd, 5th, and 8th grade are those testing grades that the schools go based on. So again, 3rd grade learns math, English. That's their thing. That's the beginning part of it. 5th grade is math, English, and science because now you're starting to get more complex things. And again, 8th grade is the same thing. So yeah, all of them is intertwined with each other, with the basis being math and English. You got to have those 2 to really succeed in life. You don't have those 2, it's going to be really hard for you to get along in a lot of things in life.
This is also why, like, I always try to push back and fight against. Fight against is stronger. So I'm gonna say fight against instead of push back. On the false dichotomy that like people often promote with this idea of being either a math person or a reading person. Because to your point, you cannot be a quote unquote math person if you are not a reading person. Because with math, it's all about the applications of math. It's all about the word problems of math. And if you cannot read, if you cannot comprehend the English language or whatever language you speak within, you will not be able to do the math. I've had so many students over the years. A lot of teachers have had so many students. I give you an equation. 3x plus 5 equals 20. Young brother, young sister can break it down. Boom, boom, boom. X equals whatever. But if I give you the word problem, that is a model of 3x plus 5 equals 20. If you can't read that, equate that word problem, decipher it, decode it, and figure out, okay, this means 3 times the unknown. Then we got to add the 5 to it. And all together, we're going to end up with 20. If you can't go from the English language to the language of mathematics, because math is a language. I want everybody to understand it, just like Kiswahili, just like Tree, Yoruba, whatever, right? It is a language. If you can't do that, then you can't do math. Like I used to think about the movie Belly, DMX. Rest in peace to DMX. DMX telling the young brothers, put the weed in the bags first, then get money. I always think about that with math. You got to read first, then you can do math. You got to be able to read first. Reading is the foundation. You got to be able to read the problem, understand the problem, comprehend the problem. Then we can get into the math. Because a lot of kids, what they'll do is, if they can't comprehend the problem, they just start hunting for numbers. It's like, oh, I see a number right there. I see a 2 right there. Let me take that 2. I see a 4 right there. Let me just add this 2 plus 4. How you know you're supposed to add the 2 and the 4? You probably not supposed to add the 2 and the 4 because you didn't read the problem to be able to know what you're supposed to do with those numbers. So yeah, definitely, like reading is the foundation. And when we say things like, and when parents, unfortunately, when we say things to our children, like, I wasn't really much of a math person, I'm more of a reading person. That makes a child, it reinforces this false idea that you don't need reading in order to excel in math. Right. And actually, I would even, and vice versa, the other way too, because you can use mathematical approaches to understand reading better. Like when I read, like I look at every sentence like an equation. And I learned that skill when I was in 7th grade. When we was in English class, we had to diagram sentences. And that topic got introduced to me, and I automatically liked it because I was traditionally a good math student, right? And I didn't know at first why I liked it so much, but I realized why I liked it because it was just like algebra. I'm like, yo, this is just like algebra. So I'm like, look, so to this day, I look at sentences like, okay, you got the subject, got the predicate, got the adverbs, the adjectives. We breaking it down like, like this is an equation. And that's also how, like, because like in mathematics, it's like, oh, when something ain't adding up, it's not adding up. It's a false equation. So that's why, when you read something like one of these, like, racist pseudoscientists, scholars or whatever, trying to, it's like, that's some bullshit because it don't add up. Like that equation there's a false equation that don't add up. So how you going to say this and say this? And like, it's like, like Malcolm said on the Battle of the Bullet, like how Lyndon B. Johnson going to be your friend, the friend of the Negro, but at the same time, he Richard Russell's friend down in Texas. Richard Russell, one of the most hardcore racist white men in history, right? How you going to be both our friends? That equation don't add up, right? So it's all algebra. It's all math. So yeah, those subjects have to be like interconnected. They gotta be interconnected in order for us to, really be able to excel. Because that's the key. Like, because when you talk about standardized tests, a lot of the kids, like when they get to the open-ended questions in the back part, they just fold. They fold like laundry. They just check out. Like, nah, I'm cool. I'm not doing them problems because they're intimidated by the reading. They see show them a paragraph, they start folding. And that's a problem. So like the reading, and what happens is if that happens in a math class, a lot of times people will just jump to the conclusion, oh, they're not good at, they have a math deficiency. Nah, that's a reading issue. They may also have a math deficiency, but that's primarily a reading issue. So, but the reading and the math go hand in hand.
Right. And if I'm gonna pick back on that because the formula for a sentence is every sentence begins with what? A capital letter, first off, and then has a subject, a verb, and it ends in some form of punctuation. Those are the 4 things that a sentence has to have to make it a sentence. But if no is a sentence, you can put no in as a sentence. No, it's got a capital. It can be a subject, and it can be a verb, and it's got end of the punctuation. There's your sentence right there. If you can realize those things and how they play a part, like you said, it all ties into each other. The math and English, it all just it's crazy once you really deep dive into it and start to understand it. I'm telling you, before I became a teacher, yeah, I probably could do it, but now that I have to actually struggle on my own, figure out how to do these things on my own, even learn stuff that I wasn't even taught in school. Because I'm telling you, how they teach multiplication now is not the same way I teach multiplication now today. Because I teach a called arrays. There is rows and columns. So let's say you had an equation 3 times 4, right? All right. The first number is the rows going down. The second number is the columns going across. So I got 3 rows going down and I got 4 going across. You fill that in, equals 12 if you add it out together. So it's really, I know, right? It's interesting how they teach these things and how we weren't able to learn these things. But then when you learn, you're like, oh, Really? If you can't do math, you should be able to do math now because there's a way to learn how. And YouTube is a wonderful thing. So, Mr. Parker, thank you if you teaching math on YouTube. Appreciate it
Oh
because
yeah,
my class is probably gonna be watching you real soon.
I'm looking forward to that integration. That's what I was thinking. That integration gonna
Yeah.
be
So
clutch.
yeah.
please do. Please do. And I try to do some so you out in Little Rock, Arkansas, I try to like, provide some like localized history so they can
No, we're
like
in
get some
Dallas actually, Dallas,
in
Texas.
Dallas. So yeah,
Yeah.
some localized history of Dallas, so because like black people been doing a lot like all over the place. And like a lot of the history is not taught in the schools. So, if you come to my YouTube channel, my hope is that you're not only gonna learn math, but you're gonna learn some of your own history. And then that's going to like motivate you to go keep studying, because like I said, sometimes it's just a name drop, an event drop, like a slave revolt, slave rebellion. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of times we learn about slavery, it's always like we getting our ass whipped. You know what I'm saying? Or we was doing this, but they don't tell you about the slave rebellions. Like I want to learn about Gabriel Prosser, Nat Turner, Charles Delonde down in New Orleans. I want to learn about them. I want to learn about the folks that was ready to go to war, was killing white folks. That's what I want to learn about. They wasn't anomalies. See, or outliers. See, that's mathematics. That's systematics. Connecting that, they were not outliers. So we get into the statistics that people act like, oh, well, that was a one-off. No, that wasn't a one-off. We was always fighting. But if these people continue to tell our stories, then you're gonna be confused.
Yeah. Most definitely. Sean, go ahead.
All right. So, brother Matt, mine for Matt first. So, Matt, I understand in school they have a lack of males teaching anyway, right? A low
Right.
percentile of males, especially black males. So, I know whenever I was in school, for an example, we were even asked to be disciplinarians on the staff, even though it wasn't our job. It was an assumed role being the man on the campus, right?
Mhm.
Do you ever deal with that? Well, both of you guys, whenever you was in school, Akil, do you ever deal with having to be a disciplinarian too, besides just teaching your class?
Yes, and I'm only gonna tell you what this year differently because last year we had more male teachers at our school last year. This year it's only three of us, three male teachers. Yes, so I'm out there in the portables where the first, second, third grade, and the kindergarten classes are. So I'm really kind of over the first and second grade. If they need anything, I always go to check on them, make sure they're okay. They have the boys because I know a lot of the kids come on my class, come sit and talk to them, ask, like, are you okay? How's the day going? Simple stuff like that. And it's even for in the building where the upper grades are. Mr. Jones, he's the eighth grade teacher, but he kind of checks in on the fifth and sixth grade and seventh grade classes. At our school where we work at, it's not like we're being asked to do it because we have to. It's more like we need you to help out. It's more like you kind of feeling your role because we already know that a lot of these kids, especially my charter school, they're not probably getting that dad at home or that male bonding they probably need more than anything, or even a parent at all, or somebody who even cares. So it makes it a really big it makes a difference when you kind of have that influence. But and actually, believe it or not, this entire school year, this is November, about to be next week. We probably have had only 2 fights at the entire school, which is a very good thing. And actually, not only that, we cut down our enrollment. We used to be we used to have 2 classes of every grade almost, fifth and up. But now we're down to like 1 class per, so it's easy for teachers to manage. So it's not so much disrupting. Classroom, how many kids you have in a classroom really plays a big role in that as well. The more kids you have, the harder. I had 30 students last year in my third grade class, and I was the only teacher. And I had a TA every once in a while. They take it out, eventually put it back in. But I had 30 students. That's impossible to teach 30 students at one time. It's literally so that goes into also making sure schools make sure they're sure that the students are being proportioned right with teachers. You're not giving a teacher too much. I don't care how advanced teacher is. Nobody wants to teach 30 students unless you're a college teacher and that's what you do. That's understandable in college courses, but elementary school is just really hard. It makes it more disruptive because those 30 personalities, including your own, you know what I'm saying? So that it makes it really hard. But again, having a male in your school is very important. I don't care if it's a white male at a white school. It's still, you need to have a male presence at a school and not have him there just for disciplinary action, because that's not what he's meant to do. Because a man shouldn't be the only person who can discipline a child. A woman can do it just as good. She's just going to do it in a different way.
Let me tell you why I bring it up, right? I had a podcast with a social worker last year. We were talking about, besides traditional school, me being in psychology, counseling kids. A lot of times, I'm one of the only guys on the staff.
Mm-hmm.
So the supervisor would take everybody else's hardest client or give them to Sean. Or Sean good with that. How is it fair to me to get the same paycheck as everybody else?
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing double and triple work because I'm the only guy on the staff. And that's so not right in so many kind of ways. You know what I'm saying? You know, a lot of guys deal with that in these fields.
Right. And I think that's not just in education only, because where I work at my evening job, it's another male here, but for the longest, I was the only male that worked here. You know what I'm saying? And I wasn't over disciplinary, but it just seems like we naturally take on the role of it. You know what I'm saying? If a male goes up anywhere, he's the only masculine figure in that, or even man figure in that, he's going to take over naturally. That's just how we are, honestly. If you think about it, we just naturally take over, and we're not trying to overimpose on anyone. It's like a responsibility almost. It's just like something natural happens. You just go in there and be like, okay, I see that I need to, just handle things out. And that's just how I am too. I go in here, I observe. You have to observe the scenery, see what's going on, then fit yourself in where it need be without stepping on somebody else's toes. It's hard being in education. It's trying not to step on somebody who's been there longer than you, but they not doing what they're supposed to do. So, but that's another story for another day. But yeah, I don't personally have to deal with too much disciplinary. Classroom management is one of those big things that goes with that. It will minimize on your disciplinary. If you have control of your classroom, you won't have to worry about calling the principal all the time or having somebody come to your classroom. My last year, I rarely had to do that. Only time that ever happened is if I was in my classroom. My kids knew if Mr. Connie not here, it's free day. But if we act up and he come back and hear about it, guess what? It's gonna be all bad. And this past week, I went to San Antonio for a conference. I was gone Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday from school. This is the longest I've been away from my kids, and I came back to no bad reports. Because first off, when I left, before I had left, I told them this thing. I said, if anybody act up, that pizza party that y'all want on Halloween, you won't get to join in it. Not only that, you will lose your free time in gym and your free time in computer time. And they already know I have done it before. I've taken away from you. I've taken away your recess. I know what things you like to do. You won't get to draw no colors or cut paper or read a book. My kids love to read. Do you know how much it hurts them for me to say, no, you can't read a book? Oh, that breaks their heart. And I love it, because me taking away from a book for you want to read a book? Oh, that's perfect. That's right on my alley. But yeah, so it all depends on classroom management. But if you have to be that role, it's okay. Just set your boundaries. Be like, hey, I'm going to do this for you, but you're not going to work. This is not what I am here for. I am not here to discipline these kids, because if that's the case, they can go home and get disciplined. I'm here to teach them and uplift them, because in my classroom, I let my students know from the beginning, I have no stupid or dumb students in here. So if anybody call you stupid or dumb, nobody in here is stupid or dumb, so they can't call you that. So that you know what I'm saying? So it's almost like believing in Santa Claus. You believe in Santa Claus so long that when your parents finally tell you that, it was me buying y'all a gift, like, no, it was Santa Claus.
It's like you tap into that psychological piece. You get in their head a little bit.
It's almost like tricking, but you're not tricking them, but it actually does work, because if they believe in themselves, it makes them believe in themselves more and more. But yeah.
Yeah, that's
You
no.
ever done with that in the classroom, Akil? Whenever you was in the classroom setting?
Oh, hold on before we answer that. Before we go into that, I folks, because I want to get this out. Far as you teaching at a charter school, so and you just mentioned disciplinary, right? So in a charter school, the charter school that you belong to, there's no police inside the charter school, right?
We just have a security guard walking around, but there's nobody in no police uniform with no Officer Terry is the most coolest person. He's been there for years. There's no real police officer. There's no police car. We do have metal detectors because we did have an incident last year, which I don't mind that. Actually, this day and age, I don't mind that because you can never be too safe. A kid can bring a knife in. That's still a weapon. I mean, even a fork is a weapon if you put enough pressure to it. So, I mean, it's okay to have things like that, but we do not have no police officer. We don't have no dogs walking around there. There's nothing where you feel like as if you're in jail. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't feel like that. It feels more safe than anything because the metal detector is the only thing you're going to see, and those only at the main doors. The officer, you see him maybe in the field or out front, but it's not like you just know that somebody's walking around knowing that if you get in trouble, that this person's coming to you, you're going to maybe get put in handcuffs, something like that. We don't have nothing like that at my school. Now, I don't know about any other charter schools because they're all different.
Yeah, I'm asking that because there's a difference between private school, there's a difference between charter school, and there's a difference between public school. There's policies there are different policies that are passed for a charter school. There's different policies that are passed for public school, and there's
Right.
different policies that are passed for private school. So that's why when you mentioned that, that's why I wanted to throw that out because you very likely to see police officers or multiple police officers inside of a charter school versus inside of a public school versus inside of a private school. So that's why I wanted to, throw that out there real quick. And we'll probably talk about that a little bit later on. The policies. I also have the Griot report that I did that talks about a lot of these different policies. It's on the website for people listening. You can download it and get these policies, the breakdowns on how it affected, who will pass it, who passed these different policies, and etc. But go ahead, Sean. You wanted Achilles to answer the same question. He might want you to repeat the question now.
Well, no, I remember the question.
Okay.
So it's well, my experience has been on the high school level, like more traditionally. So it's not, and I've always taught in schools where like there were like non-teaching assistants and security guards, and um, I think in some situations like you know it was discouraged for them to send the young brothers that got in trouble to me because I was more like supportive, of them, and a lot of times I wasn't. See, I would size up my so-called colleagues. I would size them up, and then I would know, the ones who, okay, you have an issue with black people. You have an issue with black males, black females too. So I already know what type of time you on. So um and my students also could like sense that as well, and I kind of would like validate their concerns, if it was valid, because sometimes it's not valid because everything is not a racist situation, but oftentimes it is a racist situation, or issue of you're seen as guilty just because you black and you from the hood. So the white teacher from the suburbs, they already have that fear.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm. Yep.
I would often be the one to advocate for them, and we wouldn't be the united front because in a lot of schools that I've worked at and a lot of schools just generally, there's often this teachers and administrators versus the students mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's a teachers versus the administrators mentality at the same time, and then sometimes you get into this like strategic thing where if it's already teachers versus administrators, and then but then at sometimes the teachers want to unite with the administrators to go against the students, then that's what they got to do. But I always typically was the teacher that was always an advocate for the students, first and foremost, and even if they're wrong, I want to give the students the tough love, and let them know like this is the reason you were wrong, and it's not gonna fly like outside of this building, you know. Because I think that's another issue too, which contributes to a lot of the prison pipeline and a lot of the street violence is that
Yes.
oftentimes certain behaviors that are allowed to take place in school buildings and oftentimes you don't have like sometimes I guess what I would say is you need, if a young boy is doing a certain behavior, exhibiting a certain behavior that's inappropriate, sometimes he needs a black man to look him in the face and say, bro, you tripping, right? And oftentimes that black man is not there to have that conversation. And then sometimes like the behavior gets, brushed under the rug, or especially if a student has an IEP or they're in special education, and it's like, no, we don't want to, do too much. We don't want to say anything. And then And then the problem is you 16, 15, 16 years old and you out in the street and you've been in this institution where like you never suffered consequences for anything. And now you're out in the street and now somebody blow your head off because you thought you can get away with anything. Right. So that's another issue too. The need for, young people to be, corrected in terms of their behavior and, be redirected and people let them know like, bro, you cannot do this. This is not acceptable. Like I don't care if like these white women, let you get away with murder in this building. That's not reality. Like this building is not an accurate reflection of what's going to go on outside in the street, especially like whether it's after you graduate from here or just what happens in the evening when you're not in the building or on Saturday and Sunday when you're not in the building. And I think that, there are a lot of issues that, transpire, like in the communities because of not being, there's a lack of accountability. Children aren't, often taught that accountability because nobody's, nobody's checking them, you know?
Yeah, man, it is, and we can go on. It is like a racist thing in there. Like a lot of the black students are being targeted by, like when we talk about these different policies, like when we talk about what um the President Nixon did, y'all President Nixon did, or and how Ronald Reagan veggie backed off of that with the Nation at Risk report, right? And then you got something that came following right after 82, 83. You get the broken window policy, right? And all these things uh, um was to paint a bad picture against urban communities. And when we talk about urban communities, we talking about black communities, right? So they was perpetuating that the nation was at risk because of these urban communities. So there had to be more policing in these communities. And these people in these communities are criminals, they're thugs, they're rapists, et cetera, et cetera. And now we have to police them inside the school system. So now you got majority of the public schools and other schools are majority white women. Whether there is a what I think is 1 or 3% of black males are that are teaching in a school. So that's a small percentage. And I think there's no, I think it's 1%. I think I could be mistaken. I think it's 3% of black women. And then majority are nothing but white women, you know what I'm saying? And a few white men that don't understand our children. So looking at these things, as these policies has been enforced and enforced, it is they already looking at these children as being thugs. You know what I'm saying? They can't control their behaviors and et cetera. So this is why they are getting in trouble more. But you do have some where they don't hold them accountable, but a lot of them do hold them accountable. And that's good what you said about, they when they send them to you, you know what I'm saying, you're trying to tell them they're dead wrong and you trying to figure out the situation. A lot of the schools is more focused on discipline when it comes to the black students. They're not focused on rectifying the problem, giving this child some counseling, showing them if this happening, you got to take accountability for this, and this, if this happened, this is what's going to happen with the consequences down the line. So, I hats off to you for, what I'm saying, trying to in somewhat counsel these black students, you know what I'm saying, and hold them accountable for some of the BS that they are displaying in the classrooms.
Yeah, I talk to the students the same way I teach my own 3 children. My philosophy is I think people should be able to do whatever they want to do. They should have that freedom. However, you will never be free of the consequences, whether they be positive consequences or negative consequences. Mm-hmm. And I think that should inform your decision making. And if you prepared to deal with them consequences, if you're in school and you feel like it's that important, you want to go punch him in the mouth, know what the consequences are, and don't cry and complain if you get suspended, and just make sure it was worth it. And again, that's where the math comes into play, because you got to do the cost benefit analysis. You do the cost benefit analysis. Is this worth it? Like, what are the consequences? What's going to happen? All right. So if I do this, then this is going to happen. And again, a lot of times, and this is how I connected. Another way I connected to math. That's all word problems are. Word problems are just exercises in consequential thinking. Because in a word problem, you'll get information, up front, and then about a situation, a scenario, or anything. And then you'll be asked a question. Well, what would happen then if this happens? Or what would happen if we increase the amount of apples or whatever? Or if instead of having to feed 10 people, we got to feed 15 people? What are the consequences? So again, this is why, so with math is really teaching life skills. And I think that's another reason that we are discouraged in many ways through media, through poor instruction in many places, to not learn math. Because if you get young people from an early age thinking consequentially and thinking in terms of how to problem solve, right, then they're not going to always make the right choice, but they're going to make more proper decisions. They're going to make more appropriate decisions because they're going to be trained to think. Because a lot of the young brothers and the young sisters, they just crash out. They just crash outs. They just don't, and they get celebrated for being crash outs, right? So it's like, I don't care. Like, I just like, and then after the fact, you have the conversation with them, and you say, well, did you consider like the consequences of what? Nah, I wasn't even thinking about it. I don't care about all that. Like, well, why not? Like, and sometimes, and like I say, it doesn't mean that they're always going to do the right thing, but at least, like, even as an adult, I might not always do the right thing, but at least I know what's going to happen. I'm gonna weigh the pros and the cons. I'm gonna look at the consequences. Okay, this is a potential positive consequence, potential negative consequence, and I gotta weigh it out. And then, like I said, I might still do the wrong thing, but at least I'm making an informed decision. But these young people, like, a lot of times, they're not taught to think like that or taught to approach the world like that. So they're just going with the flow. They're just going off vibes and going off like how they feel in that moment, and oftentimes that temporary emotion puts them in situations where they have long-term consequences because they didn't even, and a lot of times they don't know because they haven't been trained. So, in terms of when I be, doing my thing, preaching about the value of math, that's another benefit of math. Like, so word problems, like, because it wires your brain to think consequentially,
Yeah. And if I want those, can I throw something there? Last year we had to do this book club, and we did this book on the miseducation of Negro. And there was a study it was from 1899. And in 1899, there was a profession of black men, it was 53.4% college bred men who were in the teaching field. And of those, 675 were either professors, principals, and teachers. It makes you wonder, how much has that number gone up since 1899? Because, Sean, you say it's 1 to 3% of black male teachers in the country. How much has that number went up? I could probably put my dollar on that. It's probably no more. Hopefully it'd be more than 1,000. You would think at all the schools within the entire country, colleges, all this, you would hope at least be 1,000.
Because, Matt, you know the problem is too, as far as the teachers not getting paid what they're worth, right? If you're a man of a household, you have a family, you know mathematically, teaching might not be the best thing to do to surprise my family.
It's not.
And if you just love teaching, you just love kids,
Yeah.
you just love giving back, that's a charitable thing. It's not paying your bills.
Yep. It's true.
It's not taking care of your children.
That's
in that situation. It's like, man, why would I go be a teacher?
Yep.
There's so many other things that make more money versus being a teacher. So people that's coming up, you in high school, you're not saying I'm going to be a teacher when I grow up. Like, that's what?
Yeah.
That's not a lot of guys feel.
Yep, I went back to school and got my degree. Got my degree in secondary education. I'm not using. I was gonna use it on a professional level if I wouldn't have went back and got my master's and my PhD. That was the end and all goal. But things happen along the way, and my perspective have changed from me becoming getting my PhD and teaching on a college level, man. But nah, they don't make no money. Majority of my family is teachers, you know what I'm saying, in a way, whether they teaching in school or they in the pulpit teaching, you know what I'm saying. So, but a lot of my aunties teach, and man, I seen them struggle, man. I seen them, and one of my best friends that live right up the street from me when I was a young boy, man, Miss Howard, man. You know, if it wasn't, she had a additional business. She ran a funeral home with her family. So this is how she was able to support my best
Right.
friend and his daughter. Was they had a business together. She wasn't gonna be able to do that
So
on a teaching salary.
think about our childhood at church, right? A lot of your educating ladies at church, they sold Avon, they sold other products, might have sold some insurance. Like they had to have other things going on just to be able to make it. The teaching thing wasn't enough. You know what it's like? We said, now, we have to all the youth sports. Why are there less pee-wee football leagues than back in the day? They got less bitty basketball. Well, guess what? The guys that was coaching us was able to financially do that on the side. They were trying to make money off of it. Teaching almost like that now, to where it's like, unless you just love kids once again, that's not where your bag gonna be at for your household, bro. Not. So it's not attractive.
And that's true. That unfortunately that is true. Somebody was telling me, yeah, I know somebody who might like you, but when I told them that you was a teacher, they was like, oh, a teacher, like as if right. What is that supposed to mean? What, oh, a teacher. What is that supposed to mean? Do you that everyone does not live the same? And I can't put my lifestyle on here because I won't do that because I don't need nobody coming after me saying, excuse me, I heard you was a teacher with money. You know, no, I don't do that. But yeah, but it is true. A lot of you have to really, you can't just be a teacher. This day, especially in the state of Texas, this is very. Listen, you ain't. The birds eat better than us sometimes. So, but you know, it is what it is. But again, you have to. If you're a teacher, you really are doing it because you want to make an impact. You're not doing it. This is not a job. This is not a paycheck job. Yeah, you get a paycheck from it, but this is not a paycheck job. You hoping and praying that this is gonna be your paycheck to survive off of. This is not where it is. This is a place where you have to really have your heart into it. You really are investing because you're gonna spend more money and you're gonna put out more money than you get back in, but the reward that you get from putting that all out is actually way better. I'm gonna give you a perfect example. Thursday we went to the zoo, and I had 14 students with me that day. I split them up, girls and boys, and I took all the boys with me. But I took all my boys. They got to feed a giraffe. They got to feed a cockatiel, and they got the ride on the carousel. If normally your parents need to send you money, go do all that. That's what your parents should be doing. Your parents should send you money so you can feed a giraffe, feed a zoo. But you never know what their parents are going through because a lot of them didn't have money that day. Sometimes you have to be like, what would I have won if I was that kid? My mom used to take me to the zoo all the time as a kid. Now, I didn't feed no giraffe, no cockatiel, but I did have monkeys throwing stuff at us that weren't supposed to be thrown at us. But it was a fun experience to take the kids to the zoo. They had the most awesome time at the zoo. And we weren't there long, but it was just a simple fact they were able to drag me around all day long talking about all these different animals because we're talking about animals. They know what a vertebrae is. They know what an invertebrate is. They know that a giraffe has to split his legs in the back for him to drink water because his neck is so long that he can't just do it like how we just can stick a head in a bowl and just drink up that way. It's sometimes it's an experience that is the most awesomest reward that you can get from them. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of why I do it. I do the experience to give them.
Anytime we go somewhere with you, we gonna learn. Any excursion is a lesson, and everybody can benefit from the adults to the children. So I know how I feel when we go to we went to the water park. And you was like, oh, did you know this? So I know the kids was like, oh, it's a drug. Oh, well, did you know? You know, they get those in inherent lessons because you are a teacher. You're going to teach whether it's in the school, at the zoo, in the mall, you're going to find some way to teach.
I want to speak on what Dr. Wade just said. I told her that in private before. Some people are naturally just teachers. Like no matter what you're doing in or out the classroom, you can tell they got a teaching spirit. And so many educators I find right now, they all just doing it for a paycheck, Matt. It is just a job. Like outside the classroom, you don't teach in no other part of your life. Like to your own kids, like at Walmart, like in the park, you don't have a teaching spirit. Matt definitely has a teaching. Like anywhere you go with Matt, McDonald's, you're gonna learn something. My grandmother was like that. My mother is like that. Other educators I know in my household They teach everywhere they go. That's how they are. And we need more actual teachers in those classrooms, man.
Facts, facts, facts.
Um, Y'all, who want to go next, man? And
Yeah.
we ain't gonna,
It's
we're not
on,
gonna be
it's
able to
on you,
get all
Coach.
these. All right,
It's on you.
so
It's on you, Coach.
all right, but this question is, and again, I'm enjoying the conversation. You know, this is a conversation, um, and we're not gonna be able to get all these questions off. We already approaching an hour and 14 minutes. Um, this question here, this question is for the both of you. Um, with the wave of book bans happening across many states, how do you think these restrictions will impact the educational and personal development of students, particularly African American students, in the long term? And what kind of books or resources do you believe are essential to keep accessible for young learning to ensure their well-rounded education?
Oh, that's a tough question. Well, the sad part is that a lot of them don't read as is anyway. So what difference is it going to make? If you want to be honest with it, a lot of kids don't read, so them taking the book away ain't gonna make no difference. They ain't picking it up anyways. Their mom not taking them to the library. Their grandma ain't doing like how my grandmother did. Put a book in front of you, sit down and read this book. Get off that TV, go out. You know that. So I mean, it's not gonna make a difference. Now it will make a difference because one day you're gonna be like, man, where was that book? Remember that book we read about a few years ago? And the book is gone now. And you want might show your kids that, you know, something you read as a kid. Now I want to take it to my kids and show them that, but that book is banned now. And now look, but it will have a detrimental effect on us because that they're erasing things. A lot of information is in the books. So if they ban these books, then you won't be able to find the information. Yeah, you can put it on TV all day long, but it's something different. We all know, we all had a favorite movie that was a book and they turned into the movie. And then you like, but this is not how the book went. That's totally different. So they it's like they can rewrite the things already. So they're gonna change up anyways. But again, it doesn't affect only just us either though. Because if you look at it, look who likes our history more than anyone else does. Who likes our history more than we do? There's only one other. Like I'm gonna be very gentle today. I'll be very gentle. I told Dr. Wade I'm gonna be very polite. So. But I mean, look at it. They're the ones who are going to miss out more because they're not going to be able to. They can see us all day long, but they like to study us. They like to study us like how we like to look at animals at the zoo. We sit and observe and watch all day long, stuff like that. So I mean,
boy, Matt, it's so good you said that because I tell people all the time in private. For 15, 20 years, I have mostly other people come to my inbox with all these questions, genuine questions, trying to understand and learn our history. Because you know what? They did such a good job miseducating us. They miseducated their own goddamn kids too. Because you know why? They're not all going to private school. They're not all going to Catholic school. They're not all going to the preparatory, whatever. Their kids right on side of our kids, not learning stuff. They hit adulthood and they finally see something on HBO and they're like, man, Mr. Sean, did Tulsa actually happen? Did the riot actually happen? Like, why, yes, it did. And now it's a teachable moment.
But yeah,
you know what I'm saying? They watch The Watchmen or Lovecraft or something. You're like, man, that's fiction. They ain't happen like that. I'm like, well, let's find out. And then we start going down a rabbit hole. Did Emmett Till actually happen? Why, yes, it did. And so for 20 years, I've been doing this, though. But ask me how many of us ever asked me a question like that. It's like,
but
no, it don't happen.
That's why we need to as parents, we need to do better with that. You know, we need to do better with teaching our kids about our greatness, teaching our kids about the past. You know, there is a word Sankofa. I live by this word Sankofa, you know, and we must go back and retrieve the past, right? We must go back and retrieve the past. You know what I'm saying? And that past will benefit us, not only benefit us, but it'll stop us from making the mistakes that our ancestors made also in the past. So it is important. And also it is that's why Another reason I was conflicted with being a teacher was a lot of y'all hear me call the school system the fool system, right? Right? It teaches our kids to have low self-esteem because they don't see themselves in the curriculum. They see themselves learning about everybody else's other culture but themselves. They see themselves learning about the contributions, the so-called contributions of the Greeks and the Romans, right? And these was the first people who had civilizations, but that we all know that is incorrect. When we go back and we look at Kemet, you mentioned Egypt a while ago, Kemet or Timeri, this place, you know what I'm saying? We look at the Giza pyramids, the Khufu, Khafre, Menkaure, and we look at the Step Pyramid. We look at Zoger, you know what I'm saying, who was a Vija to one of the Nisuts, which y'all may call Pharaoh. Pharaoh means per eye. We don't go around calling the president White House, but we always talk about the word Pharaoh. Pharaoh is the word for Per'ah, and it only means great house. So the name was Nasut. But anyway, that's why it's important for us inside the household to teach our kids about the correct history, teach them about the contributions that our ancestors made in West Africa, the contribution that our ancestors made in Central Africa, South Africa, East Africa, North Africa. Teach them about those contributions. Teach them about the things that they don't tell you about. Teach them about how they had the so-called Alexander Library, the great, I am not going to call it the great Alexander Library, right? That was in Hekah, which is called Memphis, Egypt today, right? Those people like Thales and Euclid and all these people came to this institution that was in Egypt or in Kemet, which is in North Africa, which was resided by Africans before the Greeks, the Romans, the Turks, the Arabs, or anybody else who came in that place. So once we start teaching that inside the household, you know what I'm saying, I think that we will have a better generation. I think we will have a better generation. We won't have to worry about these book bans. You know what I'm saying? These book bans that are taking place, because just like you said, Matt, they are erasing a lot of the things that our ancestors contribute to, that they stole, and they're also erasing the horrendous crimes that they have committed amongst our people and raised hell all over the four corners of the earth, man. So it's important, man, for us to teach our children these things. It's important for us to write. You know what I'm saying? A lot of us is smart enough to pick up books. That's why I push literature. That's why I push writing books, because it's important for us to tell our story from our own perspective and from our own worldview. They can keep banning books, but long as they got people like us that can continue to pick up a pen and write down the correct history, you know what I'm saying, I think that will will continue to perpetuate a better generation for us. Because again, the reason why a lot of our kids are acting the way that they're acting, even some of the adults are acting the way they're acting, because they don't even have a sense of who they are. And when we think of genius, or we think of smartness, we don't even result that to ourselves. I know I did when I was a child. A nerd, I'll be ready to fight you. You ever called me a nerd when I was in school? A nerd smart, you know what I'm saying? So we don't even look at ourselves as being smart because of the Western educational system teaching us about the contributions of every other culture, but ourselves. And then when they do say anything about our culture, it is the greatest form of the greatest thing that happened to us. We were slaves, but we was running around in Africa, but the greatest thing was us being a slave and being taught by the European, or we're being taught by the Arab. We always give the Arab a pass, but but I can go on and on and on, man. But anyway, man, go ahead, brother. Do I need to repeat the question?
No. But I was going to say is, to Matt's point, is that there's like a shadow ban. That's something Dr. Greg Carr talks about in class with Carr, the shadow ban on books. already, because a lot of people aren't reading them. So I think that's one of the things, like people tend to feel triggered when you talk about a book ban, because it like makes something official that it's kind of already happening. But I think that when we hear conversations about book bans in the media and whatnot, and school districts decide to ban books, I think that should just motivate us to get together in our own communities and take more ownership of that type of education. Because I have a very bold goal of formalized schools that we don't control, becoming just spaces of practice. I think their impact should be minimized, and I get that idea from Imam Jamil Alameen, formerly H. Rap Brown, and it's one of the things he talked about his autobiography, from 1969, his first autobiography from 1969. That's the title of it. Everybody can see that. But that book, this is one of the books that changed my life. When I read this, like earlier in my teaching career, and one of the things he said that for Black people, what we need to understand is that any institution that we do not control can be weaponized against us. And public school systems are an institution, a great example of an institution that we don't control, but yet we patronize this institution. We go to it on a consistent basis. We work in these schools. We send our children to these schools and whatnot. So if they could become spaces for practice, and then our community could be responsible as the primary educators, even in terms of mathematics, which is why I try to create resources, such as my YouTube channel, because I want the elders in the community to be able to teach trigonometry to the young people and teach calculus and pre-calculus. But they got to learn it themselves. They got to first see the value in learning it so that they can teach it, and see the necessity and the urgency so that, they can do that. But they got to have somebody to show them, so that's one of the things I want to do. I'm like, I want to teach the adults, because I don't think we should have to rely on schools to learn arithmetic. We shouldn't have to rely on schools for our children to learn algebra and algebra 2 and geometry and whatnot. They can go, if they got to go to school, that's okay, fine. But school should be a place of practice, because then once school becomes a space of practice, then the racist teacher becomes less relevant, because it's like, because learning is a very vulnerable experience, where like I got to really open myself up to you. And if I feel like you don't like me and you don't respect my humanity, I'm probably not going to open up myself to you. So it's going to be very difficult for me to learn a difficult topic from you. But if my people, my old heads, my people in my community, my mom, my dad, my grandparents, aunties, uncles, if they teaching me math in a safe space, and then I come and sit in your classroom, I'm really just here to practice what my people already taught me. Similar to recess, like the recess concept. Like, a lot of young brothers like recess because they get to show off their basketball skills, their football skills. But they don't learn that in school. They learn that in the community, learn in the neighborhood. They come to school to practice what they've already learned. So I want like math and all the other subjects to be the same way. But but when we hear about book bans, we should just figure out ways to create study groups, create more study groups. That's like the ASCAC model, Association for the Study of Classical African Civilizations. That's the study group model. Like, we can create study groups in our community. We just gotta get disciplined and do it, and turn the music off. We can't be turning up the Sexy Red and Glorilla, all the time. We're gonna have to start reading. We're gonna have to turn the music off, and
Man, I gotta turn the Sexy Red off, man.
You're gonna have to. You're gonna have to.
Hey, I just saw that video for the first time yesterday. That was a really catchy song. Now
it is. Listen. I'm not gonna hold you. I mean, it's about balance. It's about balance. So we're gonna have to lower the percentages. See, the math. It's all about the math. We're gonna lower the percentages. Like, maybe listen to the Sexy Red and Glorilla, like maybe 40% less. You know what I mean? Take that 40% and then do the study group. Just do the reading in that 40%. Take that, and then you know what I mean. You'll play with the numbers a little bit, but this is desperate times call for desperate measures. So that's what we're gonna have to do. So when they talk about book bans, we gotta do our reading on our own time in our own spaces, and even like the books that are still remaining that are not banned, we could figure out ways to use those books and like tell the other side of the story that maybe that author did not intend, because maybe, I don't know if Beowulf is still on the list, or if, I don't know, whatever. Like, we could use that as a way, because I used to be big on this. Is what I used to say. I used to be big on, like, when I was younger, like, man, why we gotta read these books from these white folks and everything. But when I got older, I started to realize, in my teacher career, I started to realize, I said, nah, like, cause this is kind of like, this is art of war. Like, we studying our enemies. We finding out, like, that's the culture. Okay, so look at, like, you understand a lot about a group of people from who their heroes are. So if your hero is like this what y'all do, y'all out of your minds. Like, look at y'all, like, so it's like, it's a way you can, like, kind of get children to understand, like, okay, this is what we're up against. So this is why. So now it makes sense. This is why we were enslaved for, like, this many years, and then we were in Jim Crow and sharecropping, and after that, look, they landed out for you. Like, this is what they value, right? These are their heroes, right? Their cultural products are their books and their stories and their mythology. And we our children need to know, what they up against. So we can still, so the books that they don't ban, but see, the people that are banning the books, they don't think we're gonna, like, think about these things on that level. At least not many of us. Not gonna be thinking of it on that level. They think what's gonna happen is, what typically happens is, when we read a lot of books that promote European culture, right? We're going to use it as a way to try to assimilate into European culture and say, look, this is what the Europeans are doing. They're the highest representation of humanity, because that's how we've been brainwashed into believing. And then we just going to have our children thinking, like, look, this is what the Europeans are doing, so this is what you need to do too. Instead of saying, like, no, I don't accept that you're the highest, representation of humanity, because look at what you've done in the world for the past 500 years. That's not a lot of evidence, right? So, and now we're actually using it to learn about you and learn how to defend ourselves against you, right? So I think, we can even still use the books that are not banned.
Let me throw a freestyle question in there, because y'all are back in the classroom still in that setting, right? When I go to these schools and do these school speeches and stuff, and I talk to my educator friends, let me ask you a question. Do they even still cut out time to go to the library as a class? When I was in school, we had an actual library time. Yeah. I go to a school now with a brand new library, with brand new books on the shelf. The librarian is sitting there in the empty room. Nobody ever goes there. Nobody go and check out books. Nobody go and borrow books. So there's a book ban.
It should be the coolest place in the school.
So my question is, on a serious note, is a book ban even relevant if the kids not even going to the library anyway?
It's not, because we don't have a library.
Y'all even have one.
My classroom has a bookshelf that has some books on it. That's my library.
The school itself
does not have a library.
Wow. Okay, then here we go. All right.
So that's you have to start there first. Do you have the facility for the library? And I want to throw the man. I'm so happy you said that, because you you said exactly what I was thinking. But y'all have to remember what happened a few years ago. We made them take down all their statues, rename all the streets, the schools, the things. Do you not think that this is a karmatic event happening? We made them erase their history. Guess what they're doing to us? Making us erase our history. You have to understand.
It's war.
Right. It's an intellectual war really going on. If you think about it, we got all kind of war. We got real war going on. We got spiritual war. You got intellectual war. But we made them take down statues, change street names, change the school names on our building. It's almost the exact same, because we ain't got too much name that stuff anyway. So we can't. They like, man, we can't change that book name. But they're not gonna change. They're not gonna take away a building name from us. But books, you can ban a book easily. That's easy to ban. I could ban something.
For every action is an equal and opposite reaction.
Mm-hmm. And then Akil's talking about I was just thinking that too. I said we should not stop learning about Europeans. You have to study your opponent. Chess, art of war, chess. That in chess, I had a chess club last year, and I had all my students want to try to play against me. I said, you don't want to play against me. I'm not the person to play against, because guess what? I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna watch you. You're gonna think I'm gonna let you win. I'm gonna let you think that you're going to win and beat me, but I'm gonna come back, whoop, 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 and it's gonna be over with. Play somebody else who you can learn how to play with, then come sit with me, because I'll
play with somebody safe.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, the past 3 years of my own personal time, right? I watched Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, 300, Spartacus, all these things. Like he said, they're depicting their culture, their heroes. You barely even see us on the screen at all. So this is what y'all been doing to yourself for hundreds of years. The Vikings, the Barbarians, all those series. I love those series. But I'm studying and I'm observing what y'all do to each other. Mm-hmm. Way before they found us. They had been practicing for a long time, way before they came across us, on each other. And I always talk about this.
Very true, very true. They've been fighting each other since they came out the womb. It seemed like they're probably fighting each other in the womb like tiger sharks do. Did you actually know tiger sharks? There are two of them born in the womb together, and when they're born, one of them eats the other one. They have to fight for survival. They're born alive inside the mom. They fight for each other, and then only one of them survives at the end. So it's like that too.
Give it to us, Matt. Give it to us, Matt.
What I tell you, I told you, did you go?
Yeah, it just I told you it don't be on purpose. It be like that computer you put that little information in. My sister, they call me Bill 9. They call me Bill 9, and at first I never liked it because I'm like, why I be Bill 9? But then I'm okay with Bill 9. Miss Frizzle, and I got a cousin I call her Miss Frizzle. So when we get together, it's Bill 9, Miss Frizzle hanging out.
How about Neil deGrasse Tyson? You're your brother. Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
I do have one question if I can throw that in. If we have time, let me check with the Red Ranger and see if we have time to drop this in.
Yeah. It's okay. We got one more.
I want to add, because you guys brought up a lot of reasons why maybe teachers, but maybe people turn themselves off from teaching financially, all that stuff, right? Some people hear all these stories of bad behavior in the classroom. We see these videos, and it's a lot of people that's like, ain't no way. So I want to kind of tie that into the conversation of like overdiagnosis of ADHD, medication, giving children medication, especially, with my background being in pharmacy. I want to know, based off the landscape of the classroom, since y'all are in there, do these kids have ADHD? Do they need medicine? And how many kids in your expertise or like that have been under your care have really been medicated? And then like, how does that flow go into the classroom? Like, do they have to leave your class to go take their medicine? And like, what does that look like? Because from the pharmaceutical end, it seems like, and when I talk to certain students who are on medication, they feel like it makes them into a zombie. So we're trying to get them to focus. I had to explain that to a young man that I encountered at a health fair. It's not that people are trying to make you a zombie. People are trying to get you to be able to focus, like give you the ability to quiet certain things so that you can focus. But what's really happening in these classrooms, and is the ADHD contributing to the behavior? What's the T?
I guess
any one of y'all can jump in.
I don't have that problem like I did last year. I did have a student last year who did take medicine, and he would sleep for majority of my classroom. Majority of my class. And then once I talked to his mom, she said I'll start giving to him earlier so that it, kick in, be already worked his way through by the time he gets to school. I only have one really in my class who has a disability. Everyone else has maybe certain form of dyslexia, or when it comes to numbers, writing backwards, thing called. I'm not even gonna try to say it wrong, but maybe those two. And then I do have those who move around a lot. I let them stand up. It's okay. Go ahead and stand up. They actually come. Mr. Conley, come stand up. It's fine. As long as you don't do all that moving around my classroom where you're distracting classmate, that's fine. It's okay, because we have to understand we were once kids once. We can't stay still for too long. After so long, you have to understand. And actually, you know this because we've been to conferences together so long, many times. When I sit in the conference, I can only do so much. After so long, I gotta be like, I gotta take a break. I love information. Don't get me wrong, but you have to. At some point, you got to cut a cutoff. Like the brain automatically shut off. It's overload. You get information overload. You're only taking so much information.
Hey man, is there still like PE at y'all school? Like PE, like
yes,
recess?
I
know a lot of schools have no more. They have PE no more.
We have PE.
Us, we burned off all this energy in PE class going hard body playing ball hard.
Yeah.
So my next class, I'm in class pretty much like I ain't moving out. I'm tired. I'm in class like.
Yeah, and I actually asked that question too. But yes, I do have and also working in my I work in my evening job. I work with young adults who have IDD, which is intellectual disabilities. So either have autism, Asperger's, or some form of social disability that kind of makes it awkward for them. So I'm able to recognize that as well right then there. You can't yell at kids like that. You have to approach them at a certain way. You have to be around them because everyone does not need to be medicine, just like every plant doesn't need fertilizer. to make it grow. You know what I'm saying? So you have to be careful on that. That is a fine line to walk on, because you don't want to offend no one, but you also want to make sure that you give them the adequate help that they need. You know what I'm saying? Because, for instance, if your child is in my class and they've never been tested for a special need, and I can kind of see that might be happening, we can kind of start making recommendations. Not saying that yes, this is what you need, but maybe, hey, you might want to start looking at that, because I'm not trying to do it to push your child off on anybody else, but me personally, I'm not able to give them what they need fully. So instead of them leaving them out, and as parents, you have to be okay. It is okay to say that my child needs help, because if you do not help your child, you're doing more harm than good to your own child. You can think that you're doing good because you don't want them talked about. No, that is actually worse for them, because they're sitting in the general ed population with everybody else. They're not getting work that might be easier for them to do, or having someone sit next to them and actually read them the sentence, and they can't. We have to really be careful on things like, because again, that's a fine line, and you don't want to leave your own. The worst thing a parent wants to do is to make sure not do enough for their kids they possibly can. That is one thing that we fail on sometimes, is not doing enough for our kids. But then we put them on medicine, think that's going to help, and that's not probably what they need. They probably don't need medicine. They probably just need somebody to sit down with them a little longer and talk to them. I have a student, they say he needs services, but I just sat down with him and actually just work with him, and he can do the work. You know what I'm saying? So everything does not, again, need medicine, just like every plant doesn't need fertilizer. It goes hand in hand just like that. So you have to be really careful on making recommendations. And on that, if you do make those recommendations, you have to go forward through them. But you can't just say, okay, make this recommendation and just leave it there. You stay on top of things like that. Make sure that, again, you're giving your students as much help as possible. And then we have a schedule. I got a classroom schedule. In the morning time, they got a bell ringer. Depending on what day it is, they might have a dictionary entry they might have to do, or we might watch the weather. They got social studies after that. After that, they either go to computer or gym class, depending on what day of the week it is. Then they go to lunch after that. Then, depending on what day, they might have recess before they come back from lunch. So you're right, they're tired by the time they get to the classroom. But then they have English and math in the afternoon time, which I don't mind it, because I think doing math and English in the morning time is not the best thing at all. Your brain is not, it's working, but it's not running unless you're on coffee or some Dr. Pepper like me. It's not running as fast as it should be. So math, English, fine. By the time they come, my class is really like, oh, they ready to go. We get on iExcel, which is an internet program that's really good. So that schedule really does play a part. PE is definitely needed. You definitely have to get those bones moving, get active. Don't just sit. Because if you're in the classroom all day long, that's like when you're in a long car ride and you never get out until you actually get to your destination. What happens when you get out that car? What's going to be hurting? Your back, your knees, your leg. That's like sitting in a chair. That's why I don't mind my kids getting up, because I know personally, sitting in the chair too long, my legs are going to start hurting. My knees are going to start hurting. My back is going to hurt. I move around my classroom. That was one thing my principal said last year. Don't be a sit-down teacher. You cannot be a sit-down teacher and expect your class to learn anything. No, sitting behind your desk all day long is not going to help. I'm at the board. I'm at their desk. I'm walking around. I'm engaging with my students. And that's how I know the needs they need as well. I'm engaged with my students. I'm not just sitting behind my desk. I'm not looking at a file and basing my everything off a file. No, I'm going to read that file, but I'm also going to have to do my own observation. I'm going to have to test this hypothesis and see if it actually gives me a good outcome. If not, test it again, try something different. And if nothing never works in the end, then that's when you take it. Okay, I've done all I can do. Now, let me take it to the next step and see what they can do, because that's how everything has to work. It's a flow and chain and everything. You can't just recommend it without actually having to do any work or showing anything. So that goes back to you have to show something to recommend them for something. So you can't just say, okay, I want this child to be in a special pop because I just feel like he can't do the work. Well, where's the work? Have you tried to get them to do any work yet? If you say no, then you can't just say they need special pop without showing any type of proof or anything like that. So I hope that answers your question. Sean, I hope that answers your question to a certain extent, because, yeah, I got Mr. Parker. He got to get this too.
I know. And ultimately, I wanted to relate it to comprehension. That was mentioned several times in the chat. Shout out to the chat, by the way. Y'all been lighting it up. But, people want to know that children are comprehending things. So I wonder about that correlation between potential ADHD, potential whatever, could be even bipolar, whatever, potential behavior issues in that comprehension level that we need. Definitely hop in on that, Mr. Akil, and then I'll be done there.
I'm not as well versed in ADHD. I mean, I've heard things about it. I've never really studied it. Um, I mean, I remember conversations about when the shift was made from attention deficit disorder to attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I remember some of those conversations, and there were opinions that had to be the name had to be changed in order to justify and rationalize the prescription of drugs and medication. Um, so I mean, these are just things that I've heard. I can't really stand on those things because, like I said, I haven't studied it in detail myself. And in terms of like my classroom experience, I can't recall if I had a lot of students that were diagnosed with ADHD or ADD. So yeah, I don't have as much experience with it, so I can't really speak to it as
Okay.
much as Mr. as Matt was able to.
I appreciate that because again, that is
Yeah.
maybe a myth. We talk about. Kofi mentioned that maybe that's not. Maybe it's happening in certain classrooms or certain demographics, certain states. Maybe it's not like we think it is. Maybe it's not as many children being diagnosed for maybe behavioral issues as we think. So I was just wanting to ask y'all, like on you guys' landscape, what was happening in the classroom relating to that. But I
The,
appreciate your responses and
the
your
other
candidness there.
the other thing I would add is I do recall I've always been skeptical. I have a healthy skepticism for everything though, but I've always been skeptical of ADHD generally because I remember being introduced to. I went to a presentation with the Association of Black Psychologists in Philly. This was probably about 15 years ago, and a brother was there talking. They were looking into DSM-4 because the DSM-5 wasn't even out at the time, so we were looking at the DSM-4, and they were trying to challenge the notion that ADHD actually exists. So, like I said previously, I'm not here to take a position on whether it does or does not exist. But what they did say was, what they attempted to do was say, okay, they listed out the symptoms of ADHD, and then as I'm listening to the symptoms, and this was the point they were trying to make, that basically these are typical human symptoms, typical human behaviors. So I've always questioned,
Yeah,
I've always questioned it. Um, I've always questioned it, but like I said, I haven't done the due diligence, the further due diligence to be able to take a strong, a firm position and say like whether I, what I really feel about it. Well, actually, it's not a feeling, like what I really think about it. But that gave me pause and that gave me motivation to want to look more into it. Based on when the symptoms that were listed in the DSM-4. You know, so
this
yeah, I'll say that.
this this always tripped me out, right? Most of us have a church background growing up. You go to like a church service, the old school church. You're in church for like hours at a time. In no little 45 minutes, go and see the same game thing. We going up, we all day. No child is standing on top of the pew and just walking in between the aisles and getting up, moving around. Like you just see it. You go to a conference, you got hundreds of people in like a building. You don't have children just walking around and getting up and just doing stuff out of hundreds of children all our childhood. So now in this generation, how is that so drastically different? I never understood.
Well, I think honestly, there was probably kids getting up and going around. It just wasn't as many. There probably was somebody kid going around because I'm sure I was probably up moving around in the seat, can't stay still. After so long again, like I said, you're sitting here so long, like your body's gonna be like, okay, I got to do something. Like I'm just sitting here. You gonna be sitting here just like all this time, like and not move. Like it's literally possible for you not to just. I mean, yes, some of us can't sit in our stillness all day long, but as a kid, it really is hard to stay still for a really long time. Okay, I got all my kids move at some point in that classroom where they can't stay. Like a lot of them can sit for a long time, but they have to just at some point get up. It's okay, and again, it's okay to. I don't mind it as long as it's not disrupting the classroom. Now, when you start going around, talk to your little friend in the back, and you sit in the front. That's when it becomes disruptive. That's when it becomes a problem. But also, when I was at this conference, they were saying that a lot of them are getting put into special pops for disciplinary reasons. They're being misdiagnosed and just being put in there
Yeah.
And they don't even need to be in there. Why are you putting them in there? All they might need is just somebody to sit down for them for extra 5 minutes a day just to help them get through something. Like, and then also you got to remember, my mom didn't do this, but a lot of parents were putting their kids on medicine because they got to check. A lot of kids was being misdiagnosed on purpose. They mamas and daddies was okay with them being on that stuff, and then look at it now. They didn't got it didn't really mess them up now. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes we can be our own nail in the foot. You know what I'm saying? We could think we're doing something good, but we really are not. You really are doing more damage again than you're doing good. So sometimes, again, accountability is one of the biggest things. And somebody put that in the chat earlier. That's one of the biggest things I teach my kids. Be accountable for your actions. It's okay to be accountable for. I'm sorry. See, I told you, Bill. I told you she doing it already. But yeah, we have to be careful on things because again, you want to do as much as possible for your child. That's your baby. Just like me, I don't have kids, but I got students. I will do everything in my ability for them. You know what I'm saying? To make sure they succeed. I will sit and talk to your parents, even though if your parent might cuss me out within a few hours. I'm going to sit there and help you, even though you might cry for the first 10 minutes because you don't want to do this problem. It's okay. I'm going to sit there and I ain't going to deal with it too long. I'm going to push through for you because, again, you want someone to do what you want done for yourself. So that's where treat others how you want to be treated. If you want to yell at them all day long, do you want to be yelled at? No. Who wants to be yelled at in the first thing in the morning? Why, stuff like that? Or if I ask a question, if I get it wrong, I don't say, no, that's not right. Good try, but not quite. So I'm letting you know for even speaking up, saying even taking the time to raise your hand to even give me an answer to this question. Thank you for doing that, but that's not quite. Let's try again. And if somebody comes around, stuff like that, you have to do positive affirmation is really big. You have that positive affirmation is the biggest thing possible. I'm telling you, you have to uplift kids because again, y'all remember what it was like. We remember what it was like being a kid, and we don't even really have as much. They got social media. Like, could y'all imagine what it would have been like us in school, like with social media around? It would be really hard. Y'all, man, I was teased about being smart underneath the sun. And do you think I couldn't imagine just always taking a picture of you, putting on now you a whole meme, you done got talked about it and got shared by it went viral. You done did a dance at the thing. You think you done did the coolest dance, everybody making fun of it now. Like it's really a lot that they have to go to. So we have to be mindful of that as well. They really have a lot more challenges than we do than when we were kids. You know what I'm saying? And then there's also one other thing. Y'all, if you got a kid, teach them how to type. A tablet does not teach them how to type. Using one finger to press a button at a time is not considered as typing. You got 10 fingers. You can type with you can type with 8 on them if you really know how to. Because like my kids, we have to take star tests on the computer. They don't know how to use a computer because they're so used to a tablet of pushing one button at a time instead of actually typing with all the digits. It's stuff like that. Everything. If you work with your teacher, if you are one of those parents who are willing to work with your teacher, I promise you, your teacher will be willing to work with you. We will give you stuff to work with at home and vice versa. If communication is key. If we communicate with each other, we'll be all right. We'll be all good.
Yep. Well, we done ran out of time.
we got you probably got to do a part 3.
Well, we're gonna have to because I mean, we really didn't get into some of the questions because I wanted to get into some of the solutions. I kind of wanted to talk about some of the reports, the policies to get y'all feedback on some things. But I knew it was gonna be like this. I knew once we all got to talking, we got something after somebody else, so we got something. So I already knew it was gonna be like this. It's a conversation. You know what I'm saying? I enjoy myself. We're gonna have to come back. If y'all willing to come back, it's cool. Okay. We're gonna have to do a part 3. I really enjoyed it, man. Before y'all leave, man, could y'all give the listening audience and those who may go back and listen to this in the archive, can you give them your social media handles?
Yeah, Yeah, so definitely subscribe to my YouTube. Go see me on YouTube at All This Math. All This Math on YouTube. If you want to get, if you're a parent, you're a grandparent, whoever, community member, you like to learn, some math so you can help some young people with their math homework. If you want to understand the so-called new math, and it's infused. The videos are infused with Black history, so you're gonna get a 2-for-1. You're gonna get some math, taught in a simplified way, and I talk about the relevancy of it, and I make it relatable to everyday life, and you get some Black history too. So All This Math on YouTube, also All This Math on Instagram, All This Math on Facebook, All This Math on TikTok too. But I'm gonna start putting more content on TikTok because that's where the young people are. So I want the young people to definitely tap into the channel also. So I want to use TikTok to promote the YouTube. But yeah, so that and check out the book. Check out the book, How to Use All This Math, Volume 1, available on Amazon right now. It's a resource guide for parents and elders. Anybody that really cares about young people, to help them. What I do in the book is I show you how you can use everyday activities, just random stuff that you do in the house, or in the car, or when you're grocery shopping, or wherever you might be, and you can convert those into teachable moments and lessons in arithmetic, algebra, geometry, so that way your children will be prepared for classroom, prepared for math class. They'll be prepared for it, so they don't got to go into a math class cold, lacking prerequisite skills, right? So yeah, How to Use All This Math on Volume 1. Yeah.
All right. Well, you can find me on Instagram at the history_Griot, history_Griot. Hit me up if you have questions. I taught fourth, and I teach third grade. So anything above that is bone pay grade. So I can't help you out on anything but that. But I can help you with the basic things, on the basic fundamentals of education. It is very important that you have your kids reading. Reading is fundamental. Math as well. Those two go hand in hand. I'm telling you, y'all. You look at your paycheck. What's the first thing you do when a Black person get a job? We ask, how much are we gonna get paid? Right? And then we calculate the hours in our head. Okay, if I work this many hours, okay, right? But then when we get that paycheck, we look at that paycheck and see that them hours add up to what we calculate in our head. So we had to read and do math. So it's very important. Always holler at me. I'm always out there. I'm free. I'm usually in class most of the time, but just DM me and I can holler at you. We can help you out. And if I don't know answer, I definitely recommend you to the right person, because it's a lot of people out there I can send you to.
All right. Well, again, man, we appreciate y'all, and they heard. Now, the listening audience heard, and those in the archives has also heard too. That when we reach out, now we gonna reach back out to y'all pretty soon, man, and do a part 2 to this discussion, because there's so much more, man. We didn't get a chance to touch, you know what I'm saying, in this segment, but y'all be looking for a part 3, man, coming soon. Coming soon here. So man, on that note, man, we out of here, man.
This brother in the chat said he wanted to ask a question.
Okay.
Nat Turner, if we have time.
Go ahead. Go ahead, brother. We're finna close out, but go ahead. What's your question?
Yeah, you can ask it.
Yeah, I was seeing that in the chat. I didn't know if we were gonna do it or not, but yeah, that's good, bro.
Go ahead, brother Nat Turner.
Yep, we see you. We still in the building. While he getting his question together, man, Kofi, tell him about the next episode we were talking about having our audio narrators come on the Griots Podcast, talking about the audio experience for the audio book.
Oh yeah. We D. Lewis and our beautiful sister Flo Davis, who narrated our audio book, Acting on Your Dreams and Vision, our audio experience, man. So that's gonna be episode 11. What we call that, the bonus episode.
Yeah.
Bonus episode, man. So be on the lookout there. But brother Nat, he has his question.
Yep, the question's here.
I think he might
Dr. Mayat?
mistyped. Yeah, Dr. Mayat. Yeah, I'm familiar with Dr. Mayat. I've actually been on her podcast a couple of times.
Oh, word?
Yeah, she's out of Baltimore.
Yeah, she in Baltimore. Yeah,
I'm about that. She in the area.
Yeah, she done been on here a few times as well.
We went to
I
the
was
same
on
high
her show a
school.
couple times too. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm familiar with her work.
Yep.
Yeah, good people.
But okay, so that's
And
what
I
that
look
was
forward
the
to your
question.
collaborations. I look forward to Matt and Akil, that collaboration. When y'all get some work popping off or whatever collaboration, I want to know about it. I want to know how that transpires.
Yeah, I'm gonna go follow you on Instagram as soon as I get off here.
Yeah, definitely. I'll definitely be reaching out about that because I'm telling you, my kids love math, so I want to keep that going for them because I'm trying to build the next scientists and historians so they need to know that math.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yep, Mr. LA, what's up? Ladarius, he said, "What's today's mathematics?" Knowledge born.
Yeah.
Knowledge born. Yeah. I don't know what today's mathematics is, but the 5%ers,
5%. That's right.
Yeah.
The guys in Earth. Shout out to the guys in Earth.
Peace to the guys.
Laughing. Yeah, man. But we out of here, man. We'll see y'all, man, next month, man, for episode 11, and be on the lookout. These two educators agreed to come back on the platform soon, so we'll have a part 3 to this discussion. School to prison pipeline, man. On that, man. Peace. We out, man, and we'll see y'all next time.
Thank y'all so much, Matt and Akil. Thank
I'm in the city, yeah. I'm in the spot, in the vicinity. I'm the hottest up in the city, yeah, it really is. I studied the ones that was the realest, the illest, that invented that. Talking about Griot, West African passages for the street stone. Adios mio, make it all about the Afro-Latino. My reputation from Africa's West Central. Let's raise a toast to the ancestors of old. For the knowledge comes in the form of a griot, in the form of a griot.
Yeah.